She stood at the door in the cold night wind of the mining ring. Her skin held a dim glow like frost under weak lights. Her hands shook. Her eyes searched for help. She was alone, and far from her star. She lived in a narrow module near the outer struts. Of the ring he fixed air seals and cable runs and old heaters. He kept spare blankets and a small heater coil for bad shifts. He heard the soft knock. He opened the door and saw her there. She did not speak in human words. She pressed a hand to her chest and then to the floor in a sign of need. He stepped aside and made space for her near the heater coil. He offered warm cloth and a tin cup of broth. She sat near the coil and watched the steam rise like soft ghosts, moved slow so she would not fear. He set another blanket on the floor and rolled his jacket into a pillow. He showed his hands in the open light. He kept his voice calm, like warm water. He told her that the storm outside would pass by. Morning Galarm sighed in the ring hall. Her eyes began to trust her. Name was like a wind in a canyon era. She traced the letters on the floor with a finger. He understood that she had crossed long space in a small craft. He saw a burn on one. Lifted her arm with care. He spread the bomb in a slow arc. She watched his face and breathed steady. The coil hummed like a hive of the storm. Sang like an old sheep. A thud rolled through the struts. Cables creaked. The lights dimmed and then rose again. He checked the panel and saw the draw spike. The storm was heavy and hungry. Era reached into her coat and brought out a thin shard of metal. In crystal, it pulsed with a slow light like a heartbeat. She tapped the shard to the floor in a simple rhythm. He saw a pattern 1, 2, 3, and pause, 1, 2, 3, and pause E. Remembered an old distress code from a training brief he matched. Drew a sketch on the floor with a piece of coal from the heater tray, rings and spokes, and a small pocket near the waste heat vents. She marked a spot with a bright dot of shard light. He knew the place. It was a blind corner behind coolant pipes, where the wind roared, when the fans spun up, had patched a leak. There last week he had found scorch marks he could not explain now. He understood someone had hidden a device in that pocket to hurt the ring. When the storm hit, Era had the key to find it and stop it. Fear tried to rise in his chest. Like cold smoke, he pushed it down with a steady breath. He looked at Era. She looked back with a calm that felt like gravity. Packed a small tool roll into battery cells. He wrapped the shard in cloth and slid it inside his work vest. He gave Era his jacket and kept the blanket for himself like a cloak. He pointed to the floor and to the door and then to the map she had drawn. She understood and stood up with strength that had come back to her bones. They stepped into the corridor where the storm hum was louder. Dust drifted in shafts of weak light. The ring felt like a sleeping giant with a fever. He led the way and kept the pace slow, and sure they moved past closed doors and quiet rooms. They moved past a mess hall where a radio whispered low music. They moved past a window slit where lightning crawled along the S. Breath left a small cloud that faded. Then they walked to enter the maintenance ladder. He saw a friend at the end of the hall, Brooke from Combs, who never slept. He gestured a sign for silence and danger. Brooke nodded and fell in step without words. Three reached the ladder and climbed down into the heat of the vent. Decks, the air tasted of metal and salt. Fans thumped in slow beats like heavy drums. They crawled along a narrow passage where pipes sweated and cables hissed. Era kept close and kept her eyes on his boots. They came to the blind corner where he had found scorch marks last week. The shard in his vest grew warm. Like a small live thing, he took it out and held it near the wall. The shard light grew bright and thin lines peered in the metal skin. A hidden panel pressed his palm to the lines, and the panel softened like wax under sun. Inside was a nest of wire and a shaped block that made his skin prickle. A charge that waited for a storm surge to kick it awake. Brooke hissed in air through her teeth and then held her breath. Era touched the shard to the core of the block. The light in the shard pulsed fast, then slow, then settled. The block went dark. The prickle in his skin faded. He felt the ring breathe easy, clipped the firing leads, and packed the core in a lockbox from his tool roll. He marked the box with a grease pen so no one would forget what it was. Brooke sent a silent ping to security with a code that meant handle with care. Era closed the panel with a press of her palm. The lines vanished like ripples on a Ponthi sat in the passage and let their hearts slow. He handed out water from a small flask. The fans drummed, the storm sang far away. Brooke looked at Ira with open wonder. She was good at reading faces. Without words, she saw the long road Ira had walked to get here. She saw pain and a bright will. She gave a small nod, like a promise, and climbed back up to Kamshi, and Ira took a slower path back to his module. He kept the jacket on her shoulders. She kept the shard close to her chest. People slept through the deep hours. The ring lights were low and soft. When they reached his door, he paused. He felt the night lean on him and knew it would be a long time before dawn. He looked at her and at the coil and at the blankets. He could not send her back to the cold in the dark. Not after what she had saved, not after the way her hands had stopped shaking when she trusted him. She sat by the coil again, and he set the blankets in a small nest. He warmed more broth and crushed a leaf of mint over it. She breathed the steam, and her eyes closed for a moment like a shore resting between Wavesh. Took a small data slate and wrote a note to Brooke and to the night watch safe guest in my module maintenance duty at dawn reporting. With details when storm clears, he set the slate by the door so any check would see. I've watched the coil for a while, he thought. About the map key and the hidden device and the quiet courage and the way Era moved. He thought about the ring and the old fans and the little things people did to keep each other safe. Sleep came in short folds, like thin blankets. He woke when the alarms changed tone. The storm was moving on the ring side like a tired animal. Lyra was awake and sitting cross-legged. She had cleaned the floor where they had drawn the map. She had mended his spare blanket with neat, tight stitches. She had set the shard on the table as if it were a small lamp. Through the slit window, the gas giant showed a band of pale gold. Morning on the ring was not like morning on a world, but it felt like a clean start. Footsteps began to move on the deck above. Voices hummed like bees in another room, stood and stretched and felt the ache of a night spent on a coat roll. Era knew she meant to go back into the wild part of the ring to finish what she had started, to follow the map to other hidden places and to clear the danger before it grew again. He also knew the corridors were still slick and the vents still roared and some hands would not welcome. Hurt looked at the door. He felt the pull of duty and the pull of care. He could not let her walk out alone, not yet. He packed the tool roll again and slung it over his shoulder. He took an extra battery cell and a small flare for dead zones. He wrote another note for Brooke, walking escort back when Safiera understood without words. She smiled in a small way that warmed the room more than the coil. They stepped into the corridor to Gethyrus. They walked. He thought about the way humans make homes in hard places, about how they share heat and bread and time, about how they hold a line against cold and dark with simple hands and honest work fee. Lived in that line, not in grand ships or loud speeches, in a door open to a stranger in the storm, in blankets shared, and a shard used to save a ring full of sleeping Salsby. Morning light, he could not let her leave. Not until the map was clear, not until the ring was safe, not until she had a place at a table and a name on a slate like any other neighbor. They reached the next ladder and began to climb down side by side. The ring thrummed steady under their feet. Somewhere far below, a fan caught and sang smooth again. It sounded like Hope Brooke sent a ping that blinked on his slate. Be safe. He touched the slate to his chest and then sent one back. We array or a set. The shard to glow bright enough to light the steps. They moved into the vent decks and the morning work began. What had started as a knock in the cold had turned into a promise, and he would keep it until the last danger was gone and she no longer shivered at any door.